Hey, what's up you guys? Hey, thank you for watching this video, and today I want to talk about surprise billing. Always a hot topic. It's a good one though. You're gonna love it. And you're gonna learn why you want surprise billing. You need surprise billing. Alright, so if you don't know, surprise billing, this is like a term that media uses to describe some nasty doctor, you know, or hospital charging you more money than you thought you were going to be charged for a certain whatever, like appendix removal, ER visit, whatever like that, okay? And it was recently in the New York Times about a company doing a lot of surprise billing, and you know how evil they were, charging everybody money for their services. This is terrible. How could you possibly want money for services regarding healthcare? Isn't healthcare a right for everyone? Isn't it deserved by the people? That's what some people would say. And you know, don't get me wrong. Doctors want everybody to be able to have healthcare, to have access to healthcare. Doctors don't want people not to have health care or not to have insurance, because when you don't have insurance, or there's a bunch of people that don't have access to health care, it makes everything worse. First of all, if you don't have insurance, then like if I'm I used to do private practice, I don't anymore, so this really doesn't make any difference to me anymore, but I have a good perspective on it. So when I was doing private practice, if I would see, you know, 20 patients that week, and a quarter to a third of those didn't have any insurance, I don't get paid. I get paid zero, okay, for seeing them, taking care of them. It doesn't matter if it's a little 15-minute office visit or, you know, a intra-abdominal catastrophe where I take care of them for 4 weeks, you know, 2 of them in the ICU and all this, you know, stuff like that. Super stressful, you know, they made, you know, close to dying and all this stuff, and you never ever get paid for that. You know, it's great to help people, but at the end of the day, you know, like my grandmother says, money's not everything, but you can't do a goddamn thing without it. So if it doesn't, you know, if you can't be on the positive side of that healthcare transaction, unfortunately, you know, it stresses everybody out. Like, that's why many doctors, you go in and they're really rude and rushing you and all this stuff because they are not making ends meet. Why you need surprise billing? So this is, like I said, healthcare is a business. It is a transaction. There are companies involved, and none of these companies were made to, you know, not be able to support themselves, number one, and number two, not be able to make money. These companies are in business for a reason, and that's to make money. Now, is it unethical that they're in business to make money from healthcare? I mean, I guess you can maybe argue that, but I mean, it is a business. The money has to come from somewhere, is my point. And if you say, well, let's just give it all to the government and have them do it, then that money has to come from somewhere, and that money will come from taxes, and you will pay for somebody else's health care. Now, whether you think that's a good idea or not, it doesn't really matter, but it has to come from somewhere. So I guess my point is that if you have a business that is being supported by the transactions it does, right, then it will be able to provide doctors like this. So this company provides doctors, and they pay the doctors, and the doctor doesn't have to worry about, like, you know, am I going to get paid from these patients? So the surprise billing is essentially is doing the same thing the government is doing. Okay, the surprise billing is taking a big chunk from one person, or one person's insurance. Actually, it's not even the patient. We'll get to that in a second. A big chunk from one person's insurance, so that way it can pay for somebody else that doesn't have insurance, right? So that cost gets paid somehow, and the doctors are compensated, the hospital's compensated, the nurses are compensated, the radiology techs are compensated, right? The OR techs are compensated. Like everybody, it's a big business, and sometimes people go into the hospital and be like, oh my God, it cost, that ER visit was $1,000. That's raving. Well, the hospital has to pay for all the supplies, right? And if you're walked into it, there's millions upon millions of dollars in supplies in each hospital at all times. They have to pay for those nurses, the CRNAs, the CNAs, right? The doctors, the OR techs. They have to have people on call. They're paying people on call just in case there's an emergency, as in you have an emergency. They can call people right away and they can be in there in 20 minutes and take care of you and save your life. So if they're not working right then there has to be a team on call. This is like for the operating room. So there's so many things that I think people don't realize how expensive it is to take care of these hospitals. And on top of that, you know, a lot of hospitals, let's put it that way, a lot of hospitals are for profit. So then you have to work in, well, it is a business as well. The nonprofit hospitals, they just get money from the government, which is from us. Obviously, they have private donors and things like that too. But my point is the money has to come from somewhere. The shit is not free. Okay, even though everyone would love for it to be free. Everyone would love for it to be free. It's not free, and so it has to come somewhere. And so if you have this company that is charging, astronomical amount of money for X procedure, it's because they have to pay for all the people who, number one, don't have insurance. Number two, the government. So Medicare, Medicaid, and all the government insurances, they don't pay shit. Okay, they pay about maybe 15%, maybe 20% of say for an appendix operation. Okay, the surgeon who was running a business, has employees, has to pay for a building, all that good stuff. Obviously, he wants to make a good living. Used to get paid like $3,000 for an appendix surgery. Now the government pays like $200, $300. So that is not that is a losing proposition now for that guy, right? So because the government's changed all their reimbursements for not only the doctors but the hospitals, especially the hospitals and the insurance companies have to figure out some way to get this stuff paid for. So it's now you're not just taking the people that don't have insurance, you're taking the people that have Medicare and Medicaid, and you have to pay for them because you have to supplement that cost somehow. And it's some way you got to come out on with a positive. You can't continually be negative in your business, or you can't pay your employees, right? And employees are all of us, right? Hardworking nurses, hardworking CNAs, hardworking techs. These people work their asses off. So you can't just, take all that away and be like, oh, well, figure out some other way to pay for it. Well, it should be free. You can't, it just doesn't happen like that. You go into a trauma, there's 15 people around. 15 people taking care of that one patient, saving their life. Imagine paying for 15 people at one time. That's just one trauma, one time. It's expensive as shit. The surprise billing shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, because the reimbursements from the government have gone down way low. A lot of people don't have insurance. This is before Obamacare, after Obamacare, it doesn't matter. There's still a lot of people who doesn't have insurance. And there has to be some, you have to make it up somehow. So this company actually, a lot of companies have figured out that, look, we'll just take insurance money from some patients that do have insurance, which will offset the cost for the patients that don't. And what's interesting is that everyone gets really angry about these prices, but you don't pay for the cost. Like, say, because you have a deductible, and so if you're paying $1,000 for your deductible, and that surgery was $7,000, and then you get another bill from the anesthesiologist for $2,000, which you didn't expect, or something like that. That's your insurance. That's for your insurance. It's not for you. But the insurance companies, this is where it gets tricky, will play it off like you have to pay it. And many times that's not true. And so the insurance companies I found were very difficult to deal with. They will lie, steal, and cheat so that they don't have to pay you. They'll get away with as much as you will let them get away with, and they'll drag it on and attempt to take pay as little possible out and have you pay more and more every year. When I was a private practice, I would wait sometimes. Most of the time was 3 months. So if I did a surgery and I billed that insurance, I would wait at least 3 months. That was like standard. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 8 months, sometimes a year to get paid for a certain, procedure, operation, whatever. And sometimes they would send me a check for the incorrect amount. Like, it was $2,000 surgery. They send me like $500. And if I inadvertently cashed that and then called them back and said, oh, you guys didn't pay the total amount, they'd say, you cashed that check, that means you are accepting that amount of payment for that surgery. We're done. That seems like stealing, kind of. So if I went into a store and bought a pack of gum and gave the guy a penny and walked out, and he later said, hey, you didn't pay me, he runs out and grabs me and said, you didn't pay for this entire pack of gum. I'm like, well, I gave you the penny and I walked out, and it's too late. Weird, right? I think it's weird. Anyway, so that's why I think actually the surprise billing, unfortunately, it happens, and patients don't expect it. But number one, you have to pay for healthcare somehow. And is our healthcare expensive and all that stuff? I'm going to talk about that in another video. Don't worry, I know what you're saying. And second, those bills are not for the patient. That's for the insurance company. So it's really two, companies. This is a B2B transaction. This is a business-to-business transaction. It's not a business-to-consumer. I mean, we pay our deductibles and things like that. But once you pay your deductible, you should be done, and you shouldn't pay anymore. Oh, I do have one little tidbit. If it's an emergency surgery, well, I say surgery because I do surgery, but if it's an emergency type of situation, like you go into the ER, the insurance companies are required by law to pay that bill. So, you got to pay your deductible, but they're required to pay all that. When you might get in trouble is when it's an elective type of thing where you have to get pre-authorized. So that's the reason you get pre-authorized is you go and talk to everybody and say, hey, are you going to pay for this bill? And they say, yes, this we'll pay for, and all that good stuff. And then, so if in that situation, you shouldn't get a surprise bill because you should be pre-authed everything. But if it's an emergency, they are required to pay that. So that's a little tidbit there. I hope you like these videos. I hope you like this one. You give me a thumbs up if you do. Don't give me a thumbs down. I know some of you guys are giving me a thumbs down because it's a bad subject and maybe you don't like what I said. But at least maybe it'll get you thinking about that. That's what I want to do. Anyway, subscribe to my channel if you would. That'd be sweet. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.